Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Meltzer, CEO of the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities, NACDD. Thanks for joining me today. Today is part of Direct Support Professional Recognition Week, which this year is happening September 11th through the 17th. It's a great opportunity for our network to talk about the relationship between people with IDD and their families and caregivers, and direct support professionals or other direct support workers, and how we can improve those relationships and address and identify how we can improve how we support people with IDD to live in community. Today, I have a guest with me, Brian Kavanaugh, who is a former DSP and somebody who has dedicated his career to working to improve relationships between people with IDD and their DSPs. So today I'm going to chat with Brian and hopefully bring you some great information and updates that you can use in your work and your relationships. Brian, thank you so much for being my guest today. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you, Don. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So Brian, I understand that back in the day when you were in college, I'm not even going to begin to guess what year that was. I won't make you reveal that. But at some point you became a direct support professional. Tell me a little bit about, well, first of all, what drove you to that? Was there an inspiration for that? Did it just sort of happen? We know many of us in our careers just sort of fall into things. But tell me about what that was like and how that all came to be.
Sure, I'd love to. Primarily, it was out of sheer practicality. When in college and returning back to Buffalo, New York for a summer break, winter break, any sort of break, I would need to work and have a job. But because of my schedule wasn't always the most consistent, I needed to have a job that could fulfill that. And so I knew working in residential settings and in group homes, they needed staffing 24/7. I knew some people, friends of the family, that were aware of that field and that position and recommended it. And so I applied and started working in homes. And so it began out of practicality, but I ended up loving it. Especially as a young college student, a young art student, just kind of being around others, as well as getting cooking meals and just helping to live life and living my own at the same time was a terrific experience. So that's how it first came about, just practicality, and then I ended up loving it.
You know, that's a similar story that I hear from many other DSPs, that it was something that they just sort of fell into. It was a job to have, but it became a real passion, a thing that they just love doing and feel very connected to. That said, we also know that there are so many struggles right now. We know we're dealing with a crisis in caregiving, not enough DSPs out there. Was that something that you experienced back then, or has the world changed since the time that you were a DSP?
I would say it seems as though it's changed. I mean, I've changed as well, of course. But it didn't. The language around DSPs and this crisis that we're in right now, I don't recall any language similar to that at all when I first began. So it seems as though it's a new, different era right now, which is certainly a challenging one.
Oh, it is indeed. And I think, you know, sometimes those negative things happen because of good things. And I think the good thing is, you know, for more than 10 years now, we've really been focused on helping people and empowering people with IDD to live in the community. And we have laws now that support that. The home and community-based settings rule really promoted life in the community. DD councils really work to support individuals to direct their own lives and to live in the community. And I think an unfortunate outgrowth of that is then there's not enough support available on a daily basis for those who need that kind of support to live successfully in the community. It is something that we want to solve. So tell me a little bit about, since those college days, what you've been doing. You mentioned that you were an art student, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that you sort of found a way to bring your love of art together with your love of providing support for individuals who live with IDD to be successful in the community together. So catch us up and tell us what you've been doing in your career.
I'd love to. Thank you. So as I said, I began in this field and as a DSP while in college, going to school for art. And soon after graduating, the organization that I was working with at the time, they wanted to include an art program within their day program called Arts Work at Autism Services here in Buffalo, New York. Headed up by Veronica Federiconi, and a terrific program with a focus on not hiring art therapists, but just working artists. So it was really a right place, right time kind of situation. And I, soon after graduating with an art degree, I had a full-time job in the arts and working beside people who I was inspired by and could learn so much from. And this particular setting, which was great, is that I got to work with people over the course of 5 years. So there was no rush to get anywhere, or in terms of an educational setting and a supportive setting, we had all the time in the world. So relationships could really kind of be facilitated and grow on their own, which was a terrific experience, much like the experience as a DSP that I had. Those relationships got to be focused on, and that was at the core of everything we did. And everything was born out of those interpersonal relationships. So I enjoyed that work for a great period of time. And then I went to get school again for my Master's of Fine Arts, continuing my own artistic practice. However, when I was in school again, any chance I had, I would bring up the work that I had done in this art program, because it was just so close to the center and core of who I am. And it was shown that much more because I just wanted to speak about it with other educators. And then soon after graduating from that position, rather from that school, I actually returned to work as a DSP in the Michigan area, greater Detroit area, and enjoyed that very much. And then right place, right time again, a organization in Michigan called Friendship Circle, who had been serving and supporting families and kids with IDD, wanted to grow with those that they had supported, who are now becoming adults, and wanted to create a program focused on creative growth for adults with IDD. And so in a very niche field, I got to grow within it. And soon I was leading and heading up that program. And during that time, I was having the conversation so often of how we support those that we support, and discussing that with people who had no experience before. So that's really where my approach and methodology came to be, which is first and foremost to understand who we're working with and understand how one defines experiences of value.
Right. That's so important, isn't it? You know, it's really, listen, everything in life comes down to understanding each other, hearing one another. And especially when you are in a relationship where one person is really working to support another, sometimes it's mutual, but sometimes it's one side supporting the other. Having that really good communication, building those skills is critical. Is that something that you found and really learned as a DSP, that being able to communicate and understand your client's needs and desires, how did you kind of work with that and bring that life experience into the work that you're doing now?
It's a relationship built on trust, and with the complete and the understanding that whoever you're supporting, they are the world's foremost expert on themselves. So it's really kind of understanding each individual and how they might be communicating what it is they wish to do, experiences they want to have, and what they value in their day-to-day relationships and experiences. So it's a great deal of trust, as I said, as well as listening, just listening, not necessarily always with your eyes, or rather with your ears, but with your eyes and all of your senses, to understand how somebody appreciates moving through the world that is shared with you.
Brian, in a previous conversation you and I had, you used a term that I'd love for you to talk about and maybe define for our listeners today. The term was actionable empathy. Can you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. It was born out of really my work in facilitating creative, expressive, and communicative growth. So really, certainly empathy is at its core, but also utilizing that empathy to create strategies for someone to become that much more able to articulate what it is, as I keep saying, value in the world. Value is really at the core of it and how someone defines it. So we wanted to facilitate ways that somebody could better articulate and amplify what it is, who they are, and what it is that they find so valuable in the world. And that's born out of art education, studio art programming. But really, another term that I like to keep in the back of my mind is 1 million decisions. Sort of enable somebody to make 1 million decisions, not just choices over and over again, but make a decision that leads to another, that then leads to another, so that they can have the experience of articulating who they are in a way that is unique to them. So through actionable empathy, we can help set a path for somebody to grow in ways that are specific to them, as well as how they want to experience the world around them. And then where and when able to share that with others so that they are the author of their experience as well as how others understand them to be.
Right. Sounds like really good advice for everyone, not just for people with IDD who are learning to communicate well with their support individual or support team, but really for all of us who are collaborating and working in, across many industries to really practice actionable empathy and to listen more than we talk sometimes, right?
Certainly.
We often want to talk over each other and have our words heard. But taking that time to really listen carefully and understand that person's need. And I love what you just talked about with decision making, which is really a whole nother skill inside of itself, right? I forget what the actual statistic is, but I know I've read this before, that as humans, we make thousands of decisions, not just per day, but per hour. It can be as simple as, what do I want for breakfast, to what am I going to wear today, to really big decisions about our lives. And, do I want to go to school? Do I want a job? Do I like my job? Do I do this? Do I do that? Or how do I do these things? So that's just so important to think about how we make decisions, right?
Absolutely. And I think to your point too, the fact that we make so many means that there may be ones that we would identify as small decisions as opposed to large ones, but really, I think they're all incredibly important, and that they are what builds the language that we use to describe ourselves. How the small decisions, what we may wear, how we may present ourselves, or what we may wish to eat, or how we wish to go about eating it. Each decision adds up to us as an individual. So each one is worthy of focus and attention. So that is at the core of what I do, what I've built, and certainly who I am to a great degree.
Right. So you're taking this body of work that you've been putting together over a number of years and calling it language for listening. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit more about that. How do you intend to promote and use language for listening? Is this something that you would like individuals with IDD to see and use? Is it something for DSPs? Is it for both? Is it a tool that will bring people together for good conversations, perhaps at the time period? We're really encouraging and empowering more people with IDD to self-direct and hire their own supports, which means that in and of itself is a brand new skill for many, right? How do I go out and hire the person I want to be spending time with me and supporting me throughout my day? How will language for listening improve the way that people with IDD can self-direct and hopefully improve the long-standing relationship that they build with their DSP?
Certainly. This language for listening is a curriculum for training and workshops focused on DSPs as well as all support providers to really become sensitive to these 1 million decisions and utilizing actionable empathy so that we can understand how it is that somebody prefers to move within the world, not just physically, but in every which way of value. And then to sort of understand that value is recognized, absorbed, translated, and expressed unique to each individual. So through all those stages and all those processes, to really identify what it is that informs them so that we can be sensitive to them, as well as help, again, amplify those actions that people utilize to go about expressing and experiencing value in the world around them. And it's also important that I have a nice cat here that is wanting some pets. But it's important also within language for listening to kind of forget the destination and focus on the direction.
Mhm.
I think oftentimes it's an outcome, a very worthy outcome is given a lot of definition, but not a great deal maybe to the direction that we go to get towards there. So it's in my experience in art education and building studio art programs, you may end up with something terrific at the end, but how you get there is really the most important part. So language for listening is really built on that relationship and how it's navigated and strategies for complementing it, as well as making sure that the person you work with that and support as a DSP, that the trust is there and that you are essentially following, yet at the same time providing opportunities for growth.
Right. It's a two-way street. And I couldn't agree more. I think everything is about the journey. It's not just about, well, here's a new tool, use this and everything's going to come out great, right? It's about how we move together through this space. I think that relationship between the client and the DSP or DSW has to be built over a long period of time.
Yes.
It doesn't always come easy, right? We know that sometimes it works out great right from the get-go, and other times it's not the right fit, and it just can't happen, or it doesn't last. Something we are looking to address, particularly in this climate of DSP shortages, is one, there's just not enough DSPs to go around. But the other thing that we hear a lot about right now is as people age and hopefully have had a really strong relationship with their DSP, sometimes the DSP is aging along with the clients, right?
Mm.
And either can no longer provide the appropriate level of support needed, and in some cases is not a well person themselves or may even die. And so one of the things that we are working on here at NACDD is to do some training and partner with others to help individuals with IDD and their families plan for their future. We hear one of the biggest fears is what happens when I no longer have a DSP, whether that's a temporary situation or it's a long-term situation. I'm sure you've experienced that and seen that firsthand, right?
Absolutely, I have. Yeah, and that anxiety is certainly real, and I've dealt with those experiencing it as people who need the support themselves as well as their own family members, and it's anxiety that is quickly grows, just because those relationships between somebody who is providing support and somebody who is seeking that support is such a unique one and such a intricate and close relationship that it is a profession, but it is also just one of the most personal possible relationships that there is. And that is one reason that I've enjoyed the work so much, but with it does come some very close relationships, and that can be scary for some people when an end of it is near.
Right. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about something that we certainly hear a lot about, and feel free to comment in any way that you like on this. But we know one of the biggest issues of why we are in a crisis around direct support providers and not having enough is the low wages. I don't know what it was like for you when you were a college student for you at that time. Perhaps it was a decent enough income. You weren't really looking for, you know, your life's income. It was just probably some extra money to have on hand as a student. But today it's one of the biggest issues. Just a couple weeks ago at a large conference in Washington, D.C., called the HCBS conference, there was a wonderful panel of DSPs who were speaking. And I was very taken by one in particular, a young man out in Colorado, I believe, who has dedicated his career to being a DSP. But he said the wage situation for him is so severe that he got rid of his apartment because he couldn't afford the rent anymore. And he literally lives out of his car and uses the bathroom facilities at his local gym and other places that open their doors to him so that he can continue to dedicate his career to being the best DSP he can be. That's an atrocity. Being a DSP is one of the best professions that you can be in. No different from perhaps being a nurse or a doctor or anybody else in the service provision industry. How can we let this happen? How do we fix this problem? I'm just curious what your thoughts are, what some of your experiences are.
I wish I had a solution, most certainly. I know that in my experience, and I know many in the field right now who, because of the low wages, they make sure they work when where possible, a decent amount of overtime each week so that they can add to their income, which certainly makes sense, of course. However, that then can lead to burnout, understandably, you know, and attrition and a lot of turnover. So it's really this domino effect that I've seen where if the wages aren't high enough, people will do what they need to do to make sure that, you know, this is the work they enjoy doing and love doing and are good at. So, and they know to make ends meet for themselves and their own families, they need to work more of it. And certainly the need is there for people DSPs to be at homes or day programs during all hours. However, I've seen people burn out from it. And that is unfortunate because this is work that they love to do. And I've seen great DSPs, people who are really, really skilled at what they do and who are keen on building relationships and communities, just as I said, burn out, and that is really unfortunate to see. So I wish I had a solution. I can definitely help identify the problem, but
we
yeah.
all wish we had a solution.
Yeah.
You know, I think that there isn't just one solution. I think there are a number of things that we're all collectively across the nation working on, working through state legislatures, working with federal government. In fact, the Department of Health and Human Services under the Administration for Community Living recently put out a grant opportunity to bring folks together to start really addressing this crisis and figuring some things out. I hope that will be, you know, one part of the process of looking for some solutions. I know another that we're looking at is creating a standard occupational classification for this profession, right? It is a profession that while we in our field highly regard, not everybody sees it that way. And I know that many DD councils are out there really working at the state level on getting more recognition for the profession itself, teaching and training earlier, helping students in high school and in college, as you were when you started, to learn about this as a profession, as a reputable profession alongside with, you know, teaching or nursing or whatever else it is that you might want to do in your career, but to say there is a career ladder. You can move up the food chain and really make a good career of this. The wages are then one part of that.
Certainly.
And I think, Brian, you're a great example. I mean, you are an art student, and yet now you've learned how to, you've really figured out how to combine your love of art and how you want to support people in a unique and really beautiful way.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been fortunate. I often say there's been a couple times now where I've been in the right place at the right time, but I do take some credit for also, putting myself in those positions and those paying off. But I've enjoyed it. I've been fortunate to grow within this field in a very unique way as well. And what I love to do is really facilitate enthusiasm for personal growth, and that can take place through creative growth, expressive growth, all sorts of growth, but really enthusiasm is the primary currency for how we can be a benefit to each other. And if we can facilitate enthusiasm, then really growth will just come naturally. And I've been fortunate to also work beside many terrific DSPs who I've learned from, really, and been mentored by. And that has informed all of my work in building language for listening and how I communicate with others. It's a necessary and terrific position at DSP, and one that it's led me down this path, which I've enjoyed every moment of.
Brian, if people are interested in reading and learning more about language for listening, where can they find more information?
They can find more information on my own LinkedIn page, Brian Kavanaugh, on LinkedIn. And then there'll be contact information as well, and working on a website, and that will be up there as soon as I am finished and it is able to share.
Fantastic. And those listening or watching this today, we will also at NACDD share that information with you if you are interested. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today for this discussion. As we, as NACDD, recognize the importance of the DSP profession, those who have chosen to dedicate their lives to this work, we salute you. Any last words, any things that you would like our audience to know?
Well, I certainly appreciate being here. Thank you for the invitation, Donna. And please, if anybody is interested in language for listening, I would love to speak with anybody if they want to reach out. And just to reiterate what you were saying, the appreciation for DSPs and the position, the work that we've all done as DSPs. And I hope we can add to what it is that this terrific workforce is doing right now.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Brian, for joining me today. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and NACDD and I look forward to working with you and watching your career along with so many other DSPs grow and change and evolve for the better over a long time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Donna.